I want to tell you about the day I found out my father had another daughter. Not a daughter from before my mother, not a daughter from a relationship he had before he met us. A daughter who was born 4 months after me. A daughter who grew up in a house 40 minutes away from ours. A daughter who called the same man dad, the same man who coached my soccer team, who walked me to school every morning, who told me every single night of my childhood, "You are my whole world, sweetheart." Her name was Lily, and she had no idea I existed either. What happened when we found each other, and what we did together, is the reason my father lost absolutely everything he had spent 30 years building. And neither of us planned it that way. It just turned out that two daughters who had both been lied to their entire lives make a very, very dangerous team. My father was the kind of man that other people's fathers were compared to unfavorably. He was present, attentive. He remembered every school play, every parent-teacher night, every single birthday. He and my mother had been married for 22 years when I found out the truth. 22 years of Sunday dinners, of family holidays, of anniversary celebrations, where he would look at my mother across the table like she was the only woman alive. He was a civil engineer, respected in his field, traveled for work 2 or 3 times a month, sometimes for a week at a time. We never questioned it. Why would we? He always called. He always came back with gifts. He always seemed relieved to be home. He was relieved to be home, just not always our home. I was 26 when everything unraveled. I had just started a new job and moved into my first apartment. My mother had gone back to part-time work. Life felt settled, normal, good. And then I got a message on Instagram from a girl I had never met. Her opening line was, "I think we might have the same father. I'm so sorry to do this to you, but I have been sitting on this for 3 months, and I cannot carry it alone anymore." I stared at that message for 45 minutes before I replied. Lily was 25, 10 months younger than me. She had grown up 40 minutes away in a town I had driven through 100 times, without ever knowing my entire world was being duplicated there. Her mother and my father had been together for 27 years. They were not married. He had apparently always had a reason why the timing was not right. But they had built a life together, a home together, a child together. Lily knew her father traveled for work. She knew he was not always available on weekends. She had grown up with the particular loneliness of a child whose father is present, but not fully, always one foot somewhere else. She had started to suspect something was wrong when she found a second phone in his jacket pocket 2 years earlier. She had not confronted him immediately. Instead, she had done what I would have done. She started quietly paying attention. What she found eventually led her to a name, my mother's name, which led her to social media, which led her to me. We video called for the first time on a Wednesday evening. I remember it was raining outside my apartment window. I remember thinking, she has his eyes, the exact same eyes I see in the mirror every morning. We talked for 4 hours. We cried. We laughed. The sharp, uncomfortable kind of laughter that comes out when something is too absurd to process any other way. We compared notes. Holidays he had missed for each of us. Excuses that now made perfect, terrible sense. By the end of that call, we had both agreed on one thing. Our mothers deserved to know the truth before anyone else. That was the hardest part of everything that followed. I told my mother on a Saturday morning. I drove to my parents' house. His house, I keep having to remind myself, and I asked her to sit down. I want to tell you something about my mother before I tell you what happened next. She is the strongest woman I have ever known. She raised me with patience and warmth and a complete absence of self-pity. She had given 30 years of her life to a man who had spent those same 30 years giving half of himself to someone else. When I finished talking, she sat very still for a long time. Then she asked me one question. She said, "Does the other woman know about me?" I said yes. I told her about Lily. I told her that Lily's mother had been kept in the dark, just as completely as she had. My mother closed her eyes, and then she said something I will never forget for the rest of my life. She said, "Then she and I need to talk." Lily's mother reacted differently when Lily told her. She did not go quiet. She went completely still for 30 seconds, and then she stood up, walked to the kitchen, and began methodically going through every drawer and cabinet in the house. Lily said it was the most terrifying thing she had ever witnessed. Her mother moving through the house in total silence, pulling out documents, bank statements, property papers. Lily's mother had been a bookkeeper for 15 years. She knew exactly what she was looking for. And she found it within an hour, evidence that my father had been siphoning money from a joint account he shared with Lily's mother for years. Small amounts, regular intervals, moved into an account neither woman knew existed. That changed everything. This was no longer just about betrayal. This was financial fraud against two women simultaneously. 2 weeks after Lily first messaged me, 4 women sat together in my mother's living room for the first time. My mother, Lily's mother, Lily, and me. I cannot fully describe what that meeting felt like. There was grief in the room, enormous grief. But there was also something else, something that felt almost electric. 4 women who had all been deceived by the same man, sitting together, looking at each other for the first time, realizing we are not alone in this. We were never alone. He just made sure we never found each other. Lily's mother brought every financial document she had found. My mother brought 30 years of her own records. Within 2 hours, they had built a picture of a man who had been running 2 complete financial lives simultaneously. 2 households, 2 sets of expenses, 2 women who each believed they were his primary commitment. They called a lawyer together from my mother's living room on speakerphone. The lawyer said, and I remember this exactly because my mother wrote it down, "What you have here is not just grounds for divorce. What you have is a fraud case, a bigamy investigation, and enough financial misconduct to pursue criminal charges. Do not contact him yet. Do not warn him. Just keep gathering." My father came home 3 days later from a supposed work trip. We later confirmed he had been with Lily's mother that week, and walked into a house that looked completely normal. Dinner was on the table. My mother was calm. She smiled at him. She had been advised by her lawyer not to show anything yet. She was the most composed I had ever seen her. She had spent 30 years being the perfect wife. She could manage 3 more days. The following Monday morning, my father arrived at his office to find 2 lawyers waiting for him. Simultaneously, and this part was coordinated deliberately, Lily's mother filed her own legal action from the other side of the city. He had no idea the 2 women even knew each other existed. He had no idea his 2 daughters had found each other. He had no idea that the 4 people he had spent his entire adult life deceiving had spent 2 weeks, quietly and methodically, dismantling every lie he had ever told. He found out everything in one morning. My father's lawyer later told my mother's lawyer that his client had, and this is the phrase that still makes me feel something I cannot name, underestimated the situation significantly. Underestimated, as if we were a weather forecast he had read wrong. The fraud investigation took 8 months. He was not imprisoned. The amounts, while significant, fell below the criminal threshold by a narrow margin. But the civil cases from both women cleaned him out completely. The house my mother had lived in for 22 years was hers. The savings he had hidden in the private account were split between both mothers as part of the settlements. His professional reputation did not survive. In a field as connected as civil engineering, the details of a dual life in a fraud case travel faster than any press release. He resigned from his firm before they could ask him to leave. He tried to contact me 3 times in the months that followed. I did not respond to any of them. Lily responded to one. She said, "I hope you understand that you did not just lose 2 families. You lost the chance to ever know who your daughters actually became. That is the part I genuinely feel sorry for you about. The rest I do not. I have never been prouder of someone I only met because of the worst thing that ever happened to me. People ask me sometimes if I miss my father, if I miss who I thought he was. I miss the man I believed existed. I grieve him the way you grieve someone who died, because in a way, he did. The father I loved was a performance, a very long, very convincing, very cruel performance. But here is what I did not expect. I did not expect to gain a sister. I did not expect that the worst discovery of my life would hand me a person who understands me in a way nobody else ever could. Because she lived the same story, in a different house, 40 minutes away, for 25 years. Lily and I speak every week. Our mothers have become close in the quiet way that women who have survived the same thing sometimes do. Not friends exactly, but something deeper. Something that does not have a clean word for it. He built 2 families thinking he was getting everything. What he actually did was build the 4 most dangerous people he would ever meet. If this story moved you, please leave a comment. Tell me what you felt. Tell me what you would have done. And if you are new to this channel, subscribe. Because every single week I bring you a story that will stay with you. And this one, I promise, is only the beginning.